Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to the MJH Experience with co-host Dolly Miller-Brennan.
Produced by CommunicationCreations.com.
Tonight's guest, Native American rock opera group Brulé.
And now your host, the notorious MJH.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is the notorious MJH, and with us tonight we have the American Indian rock opera group Brulé, along with our co-host Dolly Miller-Brennan. And before we get started, I'd just like to say that Dolly, you did an awesome job with that interview. Was that Wednesday night with Gazelle Mead? Each of the three topics were informative, contained. It was just a really great interview. You did a great job. She did as well. And the reason I wanted to comment on this is because the next day when I went and I listened back to that broadcast, because when I listened back to it in the MP3 format, I can actually hear stuff that I didn't hear when the show was actually going on. Like if I'm talking, I might miss something somebody else says or something. And when I was going to edit that, I realized how incredible that broadcast was, because what we had a Muslim, a Christian, and a Jew, which sounds like the beginning of a bad joke or something. A Muslim, a Christian, and a Jew walk into a bar together. But no, it's just not like that at all. It was like, the three of us were on the phone doing an interview, addressing issues, understanding each other, respecting each other, getting along great. And if the three of us can do it, well, I just don't know why the rest of the world can't do it as well. And that's just food for thought, everybody. Now I'll turn things over to Dolly and let her get started with the interview with Brulé. If you'd like to be on the phone with Brulé, if you'd like to be live with Brulé yourself, we'll be taking calls about halfway through the show, and if possible after each topic we address. And I'll also be monitoring the chat room. If you have any questions you'd like to ask that way, we'll go ahead and fit them in for you. And now here's your co-host, Dolly Miller-Brennan.
Well, thank you, Mike. That was a beautiful introduction. And now you also were a very important part of that interview. And I also would now like to introduce you to Paul La Roche, founder of the group Brulé, American Indian Rock Opera, AIRO, A-I-R-O. And Brulé is one of the top American Indian performance groups in the country. They sell well over 1 million CDs. They've got a long run at a world-class theater, RFD TV Theater in Branson, Missouri. And they produce a weekly TV show, Hidden Heritage, which is major. And the reviewers have commented that their show is as good as any Broadway production. And Paul has just the most amazing journey to his roots that brings tears to my eyes. So now I want to introduce you to Paul La Roche.
Thank you very much, Dolly. I'm honored to be speaking with you and Mike. And I might just say that we mentioned Brulé, and there's actually 14 to 18 performers in our group. I'm just one of them, so I'm going to speak on behalf of our entire family and performance cast here this evening.
This is and I understand this is a family group, and this is such an important part of Native American culture that I don't know if non-Indians understand this. Family is such a strong part of this culture, and to see this group performing together and know that they're all related in an intimate concept, but then when I say family, the Native American culture is a family. Like the first time I saw Brulé was at the Milwaukee Summerfest powwow. My best friend was a Sioux, and we were sitting there, a Cherokee and a Sioux, and of course another Sioux on stage. It was just powerful. We felt a part of the family, and that's what Brulé does. They bring out that family in you. And now maybe Paul can tell us a little bit about how he journeyed to get to his roots.
Dolly, it's been a long journey. I mean, it really began. It began right at birth. I mean, I was one of the Native American children who was adopted at birth and removed from our country's reservation systems. And that was quite common back in those times. I'm not maybe the best entirely date myself here, but we're going back to some earlier times when the adoption process for Native American children was quite popular. So I was in that group of children that was removed from the reservations, as fate would have it. I wound up in the loving care of two very beautiful and wonderful parents, and I grew up as part of a small white middle-class farming community in southwest Minnesota. If there's a little twist in the story that started back in those early days, it's simply that I was never told of my Native American heritage. It was still taboo back in those times to openly proclaim that you had Native American heritage or descent in your family tree. It was just kept secret, and many times that information was swept under the rug. Well, so I grew up without that knowledge. I was told I was an adopted child, and I was told I was French-Canadian. Both of those are true, but my parents just left out the bigger picture of being a Lakota, and so that's how I grew up in my early days. And of course, the story just evolves from there, Dolly. I've told it hundreds and thousands of times, but the real journey, I guess, for Brulé began in 1987 when I lost both of my adoptive parents in the same year. Very close period of time. And my wife, Kathy, while going through my parents' belongings, discovered an envelope. It had been hidden for years. The envelope contained some information about the adoption, and she was able to put the pieces of the puzzle together. It led her on a search. That search finally brought me back to a family, a biological brother and sister, aunts and uncles, nieces and nephews, and we were reunited with my Native American family out on the Lower Brule Sioux Indian Reservation in 1993.
That's absolutely, I find that a tremendous journey. I also have to credit your wife for saying, honey, whatever you want to do, you want to find your roots, we'll leave here, we'll leave this life, put it behind, and we'll go discover that and let you start off on a completely new journey in life. So when you say that, it really is a strong family unit.
Absolutely. I've credited Kathy over the years. She's had the intuition that's kept our compass on the mark. I think left to my own decisions, we would have missed the mark many times. But Kathy has had that intuition. It's what we call, I guess it's what the Lakota call the seventh direction. It's the internal direction. It's the guidance mechanism that lets you know if you're on track and if you're on the right mark. And she's always kept us on the right path. And I've listened to her closely over the years. And she's the real reason why we've been allowed to continue this journey.
Well, she's certainly, both of you, all of you are doing a wonderful job because you've sold over 1 million CDs worldwide. They're fantastic. I'm always buying them and giving them as gifts, and people will say, oh, my God, this is fantastic. And in 1999, you had the Outstanding Musical Achievement Award by the First Americans in the Arts. In 2002, you were the Group of the Year in Best Instrumental Recording at the NAMMYs. It just goes on and on. 2003, Best Instrumental Recording for Night Tree by Nicole. And in 2006, Group of the Year again. 2007, another Group of the Year, Silent Star Night, which is a tearjerker for me. When I listen to that, it always makes me cry. 2007, The Hidden Story, the story of Paul La Roche. It goes on. 2008, Group of the Year. 2009, Group of the Year. And this year, 2010, selected to be featured in the One Nation float at the 2011 Pasadena Tournament of Roses Parade. Those are amazing accomplishments.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a lot of work. It has been a humbling journey, Dolly. I will tell you that. And it sounds like we've been very busy, and that we have. But when you're on the road, it doesn't happen quite as fast. There's a lot of work, and I think our sales plateau that we've reached with our CDs, it sounds wonderful, but I almost believe that each CD that we've issued out has gone with a handshake. And when you think about it that way, it's a lot of meeting people. It's a lot of small little individual performances and a lot of little small personal relationships, and that's really what's allowed us to build a strong foundation. And it's just the old way of doing things. And a lot of people these days just don't have that kind of patience. It requires a tremendous amount of patience and faith. And when you combine those two things, if you're on the right track again, if your compass is set right, you're in for a wonderful adventure in life.
I can certainly testify to the way you do meet people, because probably at your first performance after you started was when I had encountered your group at Summerfest. And I can recall buying CDs and saying, "Can we take some pictures?" And you said, "Sure." So we were taking pictures of my Sioux friend and my Montauk friend, and of course I'm the only mixed blood in the bunch, the Cherokee Jew, but we're all taking pictures. So I can attest that you really do that. And you also had appearances with Regis and Kathy Lee on CNN World Beat, A&E Photography. 2009, 13 episodes of the show Hidden Heritage, introduced those in the RFD network. 2010, 26 new episodes of Hidden Heritage are scheduled to air on RFD TV. That's fantastic. And in 2007, and I watched that DVD, over 13,000 people, they gathered at Mount Rushmore National Park to watch this. And it's not just it is the music, but Paul can explain to us about the dancing that goes on. That's just, it just brings tears to your eyes and adrenaline rushes.
Well, when we first returned back home, that first reunion was in 1993, and that's when we first began to listen to the sounds, the music of Native America. And it wasn't long after we had returned back home that we began to consider the possibility of taking the sounds of the American Indian, of Native America, however we want to put that, and blending them into the sounds of mainstream America, whether it be pop, rock, jazz, classical, country, blues. I mean, the genres just go on and on. But the idea was to bring Native America into mainstream America musically. We called it pioneering, one of the last musical frontiers, Dolly, because I think that it really we were probably the last, and maybe we are the last of the subcultures around the planet to really step forward and to give our traditional music an opportunity to have its place in a contemporary music format. Now, I say that, and it sounds easy, but it's a very delicate process. I mean, it always has been. And I think it's fair to say that we've been under the magnifying glass for quite a while just to make sure that we're doing this with respect. That's why it has taken as long as it has. But we certainly wanted to bring the dance of Native America up into that same mainstream entertainment market. So many people do not ever have the opportunity to come onto a reservation, or many never get a chance to really attend a powwow in person. So it became part of our mission as well to bring out the beauty of the culture and way of its dance and music. That's been part of our mission, bringing them out into the mainstream.
Your dancers are fantastic. They're fancy dancers and shawl dancers and jingle dancers. And the new thing that I see, anyways, new to me with the shawl dancers, it's getting almost onto the level of the fancy dancers with all the different colored shawls. So you really have brought that. The tradition is there, but you've brought the tradition out into the mainstream and blended it with the rest of the cultures. And that leads us into another thing that maybe you can tell us about, the reconciliation of cultures, your movement here in the reconciliation of cultures.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, Dolly. I mean, that's really, I think, at the heart of where the journey has directed us to, and where we've concentrated the bulk of our efforts.
To download this interview in its entirety, please visit communicationcreations.com.